All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Allison Claypool, and I am the Executive Director for the Summer Camp Society. And today we are talking about our upcoming Summer Camp Society retreat. And we have a couple team members who are going to introduce themselves.
I'm Sarah Kurtz McKinnon. I'm one of the co-founders of the Summer Camp Society with...
Hi, I'm Jack Schott. I'm one of the co-founders, and I can't wait to get to know you. We're having fun here. We're having a little bit of fun. And Paige, what the heck do you do around here?
Hey y'all, I'm Paige Moffatt. I help the Summer Camp Society as the Director of Continuous Improvement, and I also work for Change Summer as Head of Operations. Passing back to Allison.
Awesome. So just a little bit, hopefully you came here because you knew enough about Summer Camp Society and wanted to know more about the retreat. But in case you got here and don't know about the Summer Camp Society, Jack and Kurtz, what is the Summer Camp Society?
Well, the way I like to tell the story is Jack and I were at like a regular camp conference. We started talking. We thought this was like kind of silly. Like, sure, we were like learning things, but the camp conference was very unlike camp. So we were like sitting in classrooms and some expert was at the front of the room, like giving us information. And the best things that happened at the conference kind of happened like in the hallways or at meals, during off times when we built connections and community with other people that really understood us and what we were doing, and that we could build relationships with. And we thought, if camp is relying on experiential education, why shouldn't we in our own professional development? So that's kind of how the Summer Camp Society was born. So I think of it as a community-based group that is trying to make our industry better, because we can have a major impact on the world. And the only way that we're going to be effective in doing that is if we have connections and support in between other people doing the same type of work and the same like intense, weird, awesome, fulfilling, just really unique environment. So Summer Camp Society is just that and kind of fulfills that need. So in some ways, we're kind of professional development. In some ways, we're camp for camp directors. In some ways, we're a group of people that have become close friends. And in other ways, we feel like we're driving the industry to make some important and necessary, changes as the world changes.
The point of what we do is not that we are going to stand in the front of the room with the answers. What we're going to do at the retreat, what we do in membership, what we do with all those things is try and help people know each other better so that we can share ideas. Kind of like the number of ideas is going to increase dramatically higher by everyone being able to have their own conversations in a facilitated way, much more than if you just hear my ideas from the front of the room. And listen, I think I'm pretty smart and I like having a great time in the front of the room, and my ideas are only so good, and we all know that, and I can be too obnoxious. And so we need to get everybody else going. And so that's what we do. That's what the Summer Camp Society is about. It's about how do we build the container so that we can have the best possible conversations, that we can bring the most interesting ideas to light. We can help people actually where they need help, right? So like Erin just said that she's going to be coordinating with a whole bunch of volunteers. And then Allison in the chat right then was like, oh, actually Paige said in the chat, you should meet Mike O. Mike O is somebody that's going to be at the retreat who does a fully volunteer-based staff, right? Or like Aaron, I'm like somehow in this tiny world. I know someone who used to work at Camp Good Days who runs a music festival in Henrietta called Homegrown that like would be a great place for you to maybe go get some more volunteers or whatever, right? So amazing. Like it's like that'll happen 1,000 times in at a retreat, right? And so that's the goal of what we do. Like, yes, we're going to have some sessions. Yes, there's going to be some specific takeaways where Kurtz is going to be like, here's a 10-point plan for whatever. But that isn't the whole goal. That's just the starting point for conversation. It's like when you play a TED Talk at staff training and then you have a conversation about it afterward, as opposed to watching like a 3-hour movie during staff orientation, right? That's kind of what we think is important. And not to say that experts aren't important. Like I'll be at Tri-State, I'll be at National, like all those things are important, but they're already being filled. So what we're trying to do is something different that's going to be community first, and through community, there's going to be learning and all those kind of things. One of the things that Kurtz and I noticed is that it tends to be true that the older you get in camp, the more friends that you have that run other camps, the less time you spent in camp, the less of that. And that doesn't seem, to me, that was such a broken thing. It's like, okay, so then the folks that are in the most charge get together and talk about stuff, but like the folks that have only been in camp 5-10 years maybe don't have those same connections. So Allison, what's happening? What are we missing? What's going on next?
What just is the retreat? Like we get there on a Wednesday, typically it will be a Wednesday this time. We leave on a Friday, so it's pretty quick. And it's whereas at a regular conference, you walk into the conference or probably ahead of time, you have this huge booklet of these 5 to 10 sessions are going on at this one time. And then there's lunch and it's kind of scheduled out and you pick. This is, like Jack said, and Kurt's mentioned, it's just very community based. So we do everything together. These sessions are collaborative conversations, not sessions for people at the front of the room, like Jack mentioned. And then where I know after conferences, I've had that awkward moment where my camp only had the money to send one person. So I was the only person for my camp. So when it got time for lunch or dinner, I go through, maybe it's like one of the conferences that have a buffet line and you look out and you're like, okay, where am I going to sit now? Or you see other people like going off to dinner with their group of bigger camps who sit so many people. Like that happens at bigger conferences. But when you have this community focused group and you're going places together, there isn't that weirdness. It's just like, okay, everyone at this retreat just walked from one room to another room together. We can all sit together and have meals. So that's a huge difference, I think. And it's not just professional development, which I think is really important. I know that I've grown so much as a person through these retreats. So Kurtz will often do some activities with us that really have us look at ourselves and where we can grow, where we want to grow, and what's important to us and what our values are and what values we want to lean into. Like all of those things, you don't get that at a traditional conference, but it happens at the Summer Camp Society. And that to me makes it so special. A couple other things that make it different. I think I've left conferences with a huge list of like, okay, got to do this. Or I've sat in conferences before and I've heard people say things that I've been like, that's so cool. That would never fly at my camp because we don't have these resources or because our board wouldn't support it or because I couldn't get my staff on board or whatever the reasons are. And at a Summer Camp Society retreat, it has literally shifted my thinking into there is no, it's a what would this look like or how could this happen? And you get to have those collaborative conversations. If you go to a conference again, you hear people talk about their camp, their experiences. And when you come to this, you sit around and you talk about your specific camp with other people too, but you get that opportunity to kind of like, you're not advocating for your camp, but you're like information gathering just for your place, which is a lot different. Again, the community connection we've already talked about. The interactive sessions are huge. We often do affinity groups, and so you'll get to talk to people who are in similar situations as you. I remember sitting in one based off of like whether you were single at camp, dating, or married at camp, and talking about what that looked like with kids. And at the time, connecting with another camp director who was going through something in her life where her partner wanted kids and she didn't, and I was in the reverse situation. And just even that like human connection was huge to me. The way that we got to kind of support each other and follow each other's journeys with that was awesome. And it just, the conversation doesn't stop when you leave. You have the retreat, you know, you're going to make 20 to 30 minimum people that you have like direct one-on-one amazing conversations with that you want to follow up when you get home. You exchange information, it keeps going, it doesn't end. So that's why I think it's super different. Kurt has this thing called a crisis challenge, which is amazing. And if you've seen our ebook on crisis challenges, you can do it in real life, in real time, and it is amazing and exciting.
So yeah, that's what I was going to add. You know, we talk a lot about conversation, but it's not just like, oh, we put 30 camp directors in the room when we say, talk about your relationships or whatever. You know, so much of the conversation is through these experiential kind of facilitations. So the crisis challenge will be a narrative, and all the participants will be divided into teams and pretend that they're the leadership team of a fictional camp that will be described. And then we work together over 2 hours to respond to a crisis, fake crisis, in real time as it unfolds, and then debrief it at the end. We think about how lawyers are trained, how doctors are trained. It's all casework and practice. It's not like sitting around talking about, I mean, maybe they do. I'm not a doctor. They're not sitting around talking about being a doctor. They're practicing as in simulations, as interns. And so we want to have camp directors work together to practice and process and plan before summer, because when summer starts, it's a roller coaster and there's no time to pump the brakes and reset what's happening at camp, right?
So Kurtz,
yeah.
So Kurtz, you're saying that yes, community is the like vehicle for learning, but it's not the only. You're not just coming together and hanging out and making friends. That is true, but just like at camp, community is a piece of what we're doing. It's a core piece of what we're doing, yes. But you can do like there's tons of performing arts that can be learned through a community-based program. There's tons of archery or swimming or whatever. Paige, if I asked you, Paige, you've been to, I don't know, 6 retreats, something like that. Let's delete community as an answer to this. You can't say anything about friendship. You can't say anything about community. You can't say anything about support. What are 3 things that you have taken away that are like real specific things that have helped you in your career or at your camp? And you can't say anything about friendship, Paige. No friendship.
All right. No friendship. That's tough. No, it's funny because I just wrote down the coolest outcome of the retreat membership is friendship. So I'm going to have to think about this. No, I did write down I was thinking about embedded facilitators. And so Simone Gamble and Chris Reyes-Dupin and Brianna Mitchell were all at the last retreat. And so Simone and I have become super close. And so we all know that Simone is this incredible resource in the camp industry. And now there's somebody that I can call and be like, hey, this thing's happening. What do I do about it? And so that's my first one, the embedded facilitators. It's not just somebody standing in front of the room telling me how great they are and how much knowledge they have. It's like they're hanging out with us and we get to connect with them and really get to know them. And they become a resource. And then you can recommend them to actually get paid for like the cool consulting that they do. So embedded facilitators is one. Let's see. There's been some fun breakout, so Anna did a really cool reflection strategy at the first retreat I ever went to. And I've used that reflection strategy like multiple times with other people now. So just kind of like getting to see what other people do and how they facilitate has been a really cool takeaway. And then also like specific activities or training. So like Jack, at the first retreat I ever went to, you did this activity called a very tiny boat. And I've used that activity now a couple different times. And like, it's an awesome activity and really cool to help people connect at camp. And I wouldn't have experienced that if I hadn't been at the retreat to do this thing. So there's a lot of tangible takeaways, I would say, as well.
So besides just takeaways like maybe how to structure staff or whatever, it's been actually like the form of the retreat has then been applicable to the form of staff training or the form of other things, right? Like actual activities that take place there. I love that. Also, I just came up with an idea, Kurtz, you're going to hate that I'm doing this, but like, what if you had embedded facilitators in staff training at camp? So you could bring alumni staff back for 1 week. They come to staff training. They do a bunch of cool stuff at staff training. We do the stomping ground, but like, let's say the level up that I'm thinking about is what if we could pay them throughout the summer to be on call so that current staff could call them in moments where they like needed some advice or whatever, because they're like, they know enough about camp that they're like going to be able to give advice that the camp director would be supportive of, but also they're not like any part of the drama or not to say that there's ever drama at camp, but there's not like the hierarchy and all that stuff that can occur. But like the staff can just like call Daquan and be like, yo, dude, like this summer something's going on, da, 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 da. And Daquan can be like, oh yeah, dude, like what you should do is whatever, or have you thought about embedded facilitators and staff training is my idea, my takeaway from today.
I'm not mad. I like the idea. So
Great idea.
we said no talking about friendship. We didn't say no new ideas.
To building on what Kurt said about the experiential learning, I think some examples, some tangible examples might be great for people. So I know for me personally, years ago, I don't remember when it was, we had a facilitator come in and do something about different perspectives and the lenses of which we view things. And it really changed my whole understanding of like my identity. It's called frames of reference. And essentially you kind of wrote down some things about your identity and how that might shape how you see the world, and reading through scenarios, and you had to figure out which pieces of your identity like are first to respond to that. That was huge takeaway for me, and I was able to use it in my staff training. Jack did one a couple of years ago where we just came up with an idea that we might want to do at our camp. We partnered up with people, told them their idea, and they gave us something like, what if you did this and made it bigger? And then we went and found somebody else, and they went from there and made it bigger. So we started with this tiny idea and it turned into like something with huge possibilities. Again, it was great for me personally, and it was great that I could use with staff and teach staff to use with campers if they're planning their own activities. So that was really impactful for me. And at the last retreat specifically, we had a session that was based around like just problem solving and different ways to do that. And so we got in small groups, and there was like a whole flow of conversation map. And I don't remember exactly what that flow of conversation was, but essentially it was just like someone brought their problem to the group and they had maybe like a minute to bring their problem. The group had maybe like a minute to ask questions about that, and then 2 minutes to just throw out ideas. And we recorded those ideas, and everyone who brought an issue to the group went home with multiple solutions, and they were asked to commit to at least one solution during that time. And so I know that people really had improvements in their camp and their lives based on those conversations. So those are the types of like experiential things that we're talking about, the things that and you can use that again at staff training. I think that's great. You can use it with campers to solve problems. It's awesome.
Kurtz, what did we miss? Is it question time?
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, let's take a couple questions. I think we said we were going to try to keep this to a half an hour. So I want to be mindful of that because we get so excited. But any of the guests today have anything that they're wondering about logistically, philosophically, what to expect? The only other thing I would add is we do have scholarships available for participants. So if anyone's sitting out here saying, gosh, I really want to come, but my org has a really tight budget this year for X, Y, or Z reason, just reach out. We don't make it hard to get a scholarship. We want to work with people. So folks can email Allison if
yeah. And
that.
Paige and I were talking yesterday and really want to stress when we're talking about pricing, A, we do have scholarships like Kurt said, and B, when you're comparing it to another conference or professional development opportunity, remembering that it includes your food and your lodging. And so you got to think about like what the conference fees would be plus a hotel. The hotel's taken out of this, and
ground transportation this year from the
and we're providing shuttles from the Detroit airport. So if you can just get yourself to Detroit, it's going to be great, and all your expenses after that can be taken care of.